Today, we're going to be taking a look at some plant sorts that can be utilized to protect your home, as well as look fabulous enough for the Homeowners Association to finally get off your back about not keeping a neat yard. Nothing deters human pests quite like nature's very own barbed wire. Using plants and trees to deter pests and predators, and yes, human intruders too, have been around since man has discovered agriculture. This is nothing new. Best of all, there's no laws against them. If the burglar gets stitches and broken legs from trying to scale the living obstacle course provided by Mother Nature, well, how's the law supposed to sue you for bodily harm then? So let's get into all of the viney, poisonous, and creepy green crawlies that have been cooked up by nature to keep you safe and that can cause a hell of a lot of damage to the guy who wants to set foot on your property. Here we go. Pro tips. Before we get into exact species and some serious injuries, let's start with some pro tips that don't require a specific kind of plant to be useful. Your perimeter is your first line of defense, and it's where your garden planning needs to start. If the thieving toe rag manages to get past them, the next point of entry is your windows and doors. Surround your place completely and then cover the entry points. Planning is just as important as maintaining your natural weapons. There are plenty of non-thorn varieties to look at. Firstly, manicured hedges cut into box shapes that surround your property are incredibly dense, twisted, and nearly impossible to climb over or under. Secondly, any vine growing up your house will make it nearly impossible to climb up to the second floor to that open window that looks easy to access. Most vines can't hold human weight. They tear off the side of the building from that weight. Even if he does manage to grab onto the gutter or something else that's solid, almost all vines are prone to releasing their sticky juices with even the slightest touch. Within grabbing a few feet, the intruder's hands, shoes, and clothes are going to be a slippery mess that's just asking for a good painful slip. With that being said, let's look at some good options that don't need a lot of maintenance. Number 1. Barberry. Berberis. Barberry is an evergreen shrub that's got very distinctive red leaves, making it a very attractive display. Barberry doesn't grow much higher than 10 feet at most, and it's covered in wicked sharp thorns that they hide especially well when it's the season for them to bloom. Because the thorns are so closely packed together and have a habit of snagging on clothes and skin, we'd advise placing them on the perimeter line and not close to the house. This is truly a very difficult plant to get past without looking like you got thrown into a room with 100 angry cats. If the guy's dumb enough to stay low, those little spikes have a habit of going into eyes and soft tissue. Barberry also has a few medicinal qualities as well, if you really want something with multiple uses. Number 2. Barrel cactus and prickly pear, Latin names Phaerocactus and Opuntia. Barrel cacti are called the mother-in-law's seat. How hilarious is that? But all jokes aside, they're a very inconspicuous way to decorate the underside of your windows for some extra protection. The great thing about them is that they're so low to the ground that walking straight into one in the dark is a very easy mistake to make. But in the daylight, they're still big enough that your kids won't miss them and accidentally run into them. Cacti in all its forms are great perimeter and window defenses. Most of them don't throw off their thorns, meaning you won't step on any sharp shrapnel. And if you really want to get as much out of them as possible, there are a few edible kinds like the prickly pear. Cactus thorns are unusual. If they break off, the shape makes it possible for them to get drawn deeper into the skin, meaning that most of the time medical assistance is needed to get them out. Prickly pear especially is outstanding at embedding hundreds, if not thousands, of minuscule shards under the skin if you're unlucky enough to fall on one. They stick to clothes and embed themselves continuously as you're struggling to get the peppered shirt off. And tomorrow, every puncture becomes an angry, infected disaster. Prickly pears are by far our favorite of the cacti species to use as a defensive barrier. They certainly have the most ammunition of all our options. Number 3. Bougainvillea, Latin name Bougainvillea glabra. Since we're in the hotter climates, bougainvilleas are the most colorful display of nature's magnificence that you could possibly frame your house with. They vine, bush, and cover every possible surface you offer them. You'd think that a monstrous creeper like this would be a headache to control, but quite the contrary. Usually vining plants, if they're not appropriately trimmed, can weigh down roofs and damage the structure of your house. But bougainvilleas aren't quite as heavy as the colder climate vines. They use their center stems for support more than your walls. All of the other branches that grow from that center stem are light and flimsy. There is just no way to climb it because it won't hold anything bigger than a raccoon. It sure does give the illusion that it's hardier than it really is, so somebody's bound to try to climb it, and trust us, he's not going to achieve anything other than a head full of paper-thin pink flowers and a teeth-shattering meeting with the ground. A good trim once a year is all you really need to keep them in check. And don't be afraid to trim back the nubs, because they can grow back faster than you can blink. Bougainvilleas are effective because they're so unassuming, and anyone trying to break in is bound to think that they can try and climb them, only to eat concrete in seconds. Number 4. Crown of Thorns, Latin name Euphorbia milli. Crown of Thorns, named after, well, duh. The ridiculous amount of thorns it has is an extremely attractive little shrub that's perfect for keeping in windowsill boxes. Not only will they snag the skin, they'll also cause burning, itching, and extreme discomfort. It's not as spicy as poison ivy, but it's still going to make the skin break out in angry, swollen welts that'll haunt you for a few days. The thorns are strong and hard, but they have a habit of breaking off into the skin, requiring you to dig them out manually when they inevitably get embedded into you. Uncomfortable enough to teach a thief a lesson, but not deadly enough to land you in legal hot water. They don't need much pampering, and they prefer to be left to their own devices. But please, wear some gloves when you're handling it. You don't want the sap or thorns anywhere near your hands or eyes. Crown of Thorns is also the only poisonous plant that's legal to actively grow on your property, outside of poison ivy that grows naturally in the US anyways. They aren't deadly, just terribly uncomfortable and pose no danger to causing unexpected death due to underlying medical conditions. Number 5. Devil's Walking Stick, Latin name Aralia alata. Thus far, we focused on more inconspicuous, low-growing variety. Enter the Devil's Walking Stick. There is nothing unassuming about this thing. Those thorns are absolutely vicious. The thing about them around the perimeter or even close to the entrances is that they look imposing. Nobody's gonna overlook that nasty appearance during the daytime if they're scouting out houses, and its appearance will be scary enough to make them look elsewhere instead. But they aren't as noticeable in the dark. It's easy to grab onto a trunk when you're trying to get into a window, and there's no question that those spikes are going to tear up a hand like nobody's business. We're going to take a second to remind you to like, subscribe, and share the hell out of this video. Your views, likes, and subscriptions are the reason our team can bring you human-produced content geared towards the weapon enthusiast, homesteader, prepper, and everyday guy just looking to get prepared. Without you, we truly could not do what we do. So to those of you who have already subbed, and to those of you who are about to do just that, thank you. Number 6. Rose. Obviously, we can't complete this list without mentioning roses. But there's more to them than just picture-perfect clusters beneath windowsills. Roses, like we mentioned before, can vine too. And there are so many varieties, shrubbing, bush, vining, and stalks that their potential is almost endless. If you want them to hug the walls, vines are the way to go. Do you need a bush that can tangle up an entire human being in them? Get the bushing variety. If you need a hedge, well, there's variations of those too. The smaller the flowers, the more numerous and smaller the thorns will be as well. Small thorns are not a deal breaker. On the contrary, they're usually more closely spaced, making them perfect for entangling a person almost completely into them. But we like rose bushes for one more reason. They make it easy to hide a ditch behind. Make a ditch deep enough that it can break or at least sprain an ankle, and plant your bush in such a way that it obstructs the hole. Extra points if you line the bottom with some sharp rocks to increase the likelihood of getting the ankle banged up nice and good. Number 7. Berries. Berries is a bit more of a general example of perimeter defense. They're also some of the few thorning varieties outside of roses that are cold hardy. Because, as you might have noticed, not a lot of our options here today are well suited for northern winters. Blackberries are probably the most popular choice though, and they grow the most vigorously of the lot. They poke, stain, and ensnare passersby with their tangled, thorny bramble branches. They can grow so thick that even the goats, that are capable of eating cacti thorns and all, have trouble eating their way through the thick clump, and often end up completely trapped in the dense growth. Blackberries aren't very pretty, simply because they grow so wildly and it's impossible to contain them with pruning, and they can spread terribly fast. But for our friends who live on acreages and homesteads, keeping them along your fence line keeps out vermin, both the furry kind and the human intruders as well. They also double as a very nutritious feed for your animals. This holds true for all berry varieties, but none grow as aggressively as blackberries. Thorns don't have to be unattractive. If anything, a well-planned cactus garden can be both appealing and defensive if you place your prickly decorations in strategic locations. Windows, doors, and the entire surrounding perimeter line can all do with a little extra fortification. Best of all, most of our options today don't require all that much care from you, except for the occasional trim, some water, and a seasonal helping of fertilizer. Sure, get the security system. put out a few booby traps, but why not allow Mother Nature to supply you with another line of defense that barely requires any maintenance from you? The point is to make the journey toward your house so treacherous that just getting across the yard is an obstacle on its own. Sometimes discomfort and a little bit of pain can offer you more protection than your firearm on your nightstand can. So, guys, have fun planning this year's garden, and until next time, this is Threat to Survival. Prepare today, thrive tomorrow. Embrace the threat to survival.